Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. Welcome to our video presentation brought to you by Group 5. And today we are diving into a topic that's the fuel for the mind, motivation in learning. Before we jump in, this is our team member and I'm Norwidat Nasuha, your first presenter for today. Here's what we've got lined up for you today. Number one, we have introduction. Number two, intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Number three, major theories, Maslow and self-determination theory. Number four, Islamic perspective. Number five, factors affecting student motivation. Number six, practical application for educators, students, and parents. And lastly, we have conclusion. Let's proceed with the introduction. Have you ever wondered what is motivation? So, motivation in learning refers to the internal drive or external influence that encourage students to engage with learning tasks. It is the reason behind students' willingness to start learning, their level of involvement, and how long they stick with it even when things got tough. Motivation also plays a crucial role in academic success. A motivated student tends to put more effort into their studies, has better concentration, and shows greater persistence in overcoming challenges. Without motivation, even the most capable learners might struggle to reach their full potential. Meet Aina and Sarah, two students who both struggle with science. Aina failed her mid-year exam. She felt lost in class, avoided asking questions, and stopped revising. Every time she opened her textbook, she'd sigh and say, I'm just not a science person. On the other hand, Sarah also did poorly at first, but one day her science teacher shared how she too had once struggled with the subject and overcome it with practice and persistence. That moment inspired Sarah. She thought if my teacher could do it, maybe I can too. From then on, she set a goal to improve. She read extra materials, asked questions in class, and create colorful notes. Even when she got stuck, she did not give up because she now had a purpose. Over time, Sarah's marks improved. She became more confident, and science was not just a subject anymore. It became something she enjoyed. The story of Aina and Sarah shows how motivation affects students' effort and success. But what types of motivation drive learning? So let's hear this from the next presenter.
Alright, now we are going to explore types of motivation. There are two types we will focus on, which is intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. These two are different, but both can affect our performance and attitude in education and beyond. On this slide, we compare intrinsic and extrinsic motivation using 5 key aspects, which is definition, source of motivation, focus, outcome, and example. So let's go through them one by one for each type. So for the first one is intrinsic motivation. It is when someone is motivated to do something because it is personally rewarding. In simple terms, we do it because we genuinely enjoy it or find it meaningful, not because someone is making us. Second is source of motivation. The source is internal. This means the drive comes from within ourselves, like our own curiosity, interest, or love for the subject. The third is focus. They focus on enjoyment, interest, or challenge. The focus is on the learning process itself. People with intrinsic motivation care about understanding, exploring, and improving. They're not thinking about the marks or rewards, they just enjoy the activity. The fourth is outcome. The outcome is usually long-term engagement. The students tend to be more consistent in their effort and they learn because they want to. Therefore, they are more likely to continue learning even outside the classroom. So for intrinsic example is students learn math because it is fun and engaging. Moving on to the next type is extrinsic motivation. It is when students are motivated to do something to earn reward or avoid punishment. In other words, we do it because of something outside of us like money, grades, or approval. Second is the source of motivation is the external. The motivation comes from what others give or expect from us. The third is focus. They focus on grade, praise, or avoiding punishment. The focus here is on the outcome. The person is thinking about what they will get or what will happen once the task is done. The fourth is the outcome. The outcome tends to be short-term performance. Extrinsic motivation can boost effort quickly, but it often fades when the reward is removed. It might not lead to deeper understanding. So, for example, students learn maths just to get an A. So, in summary, intrinsic motivation gives us long-lasting interest and deeper learning, while extrinsic motivation can help us complete short-term goals. In reality, we often experience both, and finding the right balance is the key to the success. For a better understanding, let's look at this conversation between two students. One student says, "Solving puzzles is exciting. I love the challenge." That is intrinsic motivation because he enjoys the activity itself. Then he says, "I'm reading ahead because I want to know what's next." That's also an intrinsic because he's motivated by curiosity. Meanwhile, the other student says, "My parents promised me a reward if I pass, and if I don't do well, I'll get in trouble." These are clear examples of extrinsic motivation. He is motivated by external consequences. So, in conclusion, both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation have their roles, but for deeper, long-lasting learning, intrinsic motivation is often more powerful. And as educators or learners, we should try to build environment that spark curiosity, not just chase rewards. So thank you for listening. Our next presenter will present on major motivational theories.
So now, let us explore one of the major theories of motivation, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how it can be applied in educational settings to enhance students' learning experience. So, firstly, one of the foundational theories in understanding motivation is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It developed by Abraham Maslow in 1943. This theory explains human motivation through a structured hierarchy consisting of 5 levels of needs, from basic psychological needs to the highest need of self-actualization. According to Maslow, learners must fulfill lower level needs before they can be motivated to pursue higher level growth. This model helps educators assess students' readiness and create more supportive learning environment. Here we see Maslow's pyramid, which represents the 5 levels of human needs: physiological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem needs, self-actualization. The lower the need, the more foundational it is. Without satisfying the bottom levels, it is difficult for students to reach their full learning potential at the top of the hierarchy. The first and most basic level of the hierarchy is physiological needs. These include essentials such as food, water, rest, and shelter. In a classroom context, if students are tired, hungry, or physically uncomfortable, they are unlikely to focus or be motivated to learn. Teachers must ensure that learning environment supports these fundamental needs, for example, by allowing breaks and recognizing signs of physical distress. The second level is safety needs. This refers to both physical safety and emotional security. Students need to feel safe from harm, bullying, and fear. Equally important is emotional safety. A classroom should be a space where students feel free to express themselves without fear of judgment or ridicule. Creating consistent routines, setting clear rules, and showing empathy help fulfill this need. The third level is love and belonging. This is the need to feel accepted, valued, and connected, both by peers and teachers. When students feel like they are part of a classroom community, their motivation will increase. Teachers can support this by encouraging collaboration, group work, respectful communication, and developing strong teacher-student relationships. The fourth level is esteem needs. At this stage, students seek recognition and a sense of accomplishment. This includes both internal esteem, feeling confident and capable, and external esteem, such as receiving praise and acknowledgement. Providing constructive feedback, celebrating student progress, and setting achievable goals are all essential to build students' self-esteem. At the top of the hierarchy is self-actualization, the desire to achieve one's full potential. This is where students are driven by their own goals, dreams, and values. In the classroom, students at this level are more often motivated to explore, create, and pursue mastery, not just for grades, but for personal growth. Next, let us dive in the self-determination theory, or we call it as SDT, one of the major theories used to understand motivation in learning. So, what is self-determination? Self-determination refers to a person's ability to make independent choices and have control over their own life. In the context of learning, it means that students feel empowered to take responsibility for their education and pursue learning for its own value, not just for grades or rewards. This sense of ownership leads to a greater engagement, higher achievement, and long-term growth. So, it was created by Edwin Desai and Richard Ryan in the year 2000. It focuses on how people are naturally motivated to grow, learn, and perform best when certain psychological needs are met. The theory begins with two main assumptions. The first one, human beings strive for growth. And second one, internal sources of motivation are essential. So, in order to achieve growth, people need to feel autonomous, competent, and connected with others. So, to reach their full potential, students need to experience three core psychological needs, which is the first one, autonomy, the feeling in control of one's action. Second one, competence, the feeling capable and successful in what they do. The last one, relatedness, feeling connected and supported by others. When these three needs are fulfilled, students are more likely to develop intrinsic motivation, which leads to better learning outcomes and personal satisfaction. Now, let us explore the stages of motivation in SDT, also known as the regulation continuum. There are 6 types, ranging from no motivation to full intrinsic motivation. The first one, non-regulation, external regulation, introjected regulation, identified regulation, integrated regulation, and the last one, intrinsic regulation. Let's go through each one with student-centered examples to better understand them. The first one is non-regulation. This is a state of no motivation. The student is disengaged and does not see the value in learning. For example, why should I even study? So, the second one is external regulation. The motivation is driven by external rewards or punishments. For example, I study so I don't get scolded, or I want a good grade. So the third one is introjected regulation. The motivation is internal but comes from pressure such as guilt or fear. For example, I will feel ashamed if I fail. These types of motivation are less sustainable because they are based on pressure, not genuine interests. Now, we move to more self-driven forms of motivation. The fourth one is identified regulation, which is the student sees the value of learning. For example, I study because it's important for my future. The fifth one is integrated regulation. Learning becomes part of the student's identity. For example, learning aligns with my goals and who I want to be. The last one is intrinsic regulation. This is the highest form of motivation, which is learning purely for the joy of it. For example, I study because I love learning. Islam adds a deeper dimension to motivation. It's not just about external achievements, it's about our intention, our relationship with Allah, and our inner purpose behind seeking knowledge. So, we will explore more on how Islam shapes our motivation as students and lifelong learners. Motivation in Islam is tied to niyah, intention, accountability and seeking Allah's pleasure. The Prophet Muhammad SAW said, "Verily, actions are judged by intentions and every person will get the reward according to what they intended." Sahih Al-Bukhari, Hadith 1. This is one of the most important hadiths in Islam. It teaches us that every action is judged based on our niyah. So, what does this mean for us as students? It means that when we study, attend lectures, complete our assignments, or sit for exams, if our intention is sincere, such as to gain beneficial knowledge, to serve others and please Allah, then even these academic tasks can be acts of worship, which is ibadah. This is the foundation of Islamic motivation, doing things with a purpose beyond the worldly, not to show off, not just to get good grades, but to grow as a Muslim and earn the pleasure of Allah. Allah says in the Quran in Surah Al-Mujadilah verse 11, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. The meaning is, Allah will raise those who have believed among you and those who were given knowledge by degrees. This verse gives us a powerful motivation to seek knowledge. In Islam, knowledge is not just information, it is a source of elevation. Those who seek knowledge with faith are honored by Allah. They are raised in rank, not only in this world, but more importantly in the hereafter. This is why scholars are so respected in Islam, because they carry the responsibility of guiding others and applying knowledge with wisdom and humility. As students, this verse should inspire us to keep going, even when studies feel hard or overwhelming. Allah knows your struggle and He promises a reward for it. In Surah Taha verse 114, we find a short yet powerful dua, Rabbi zidni ilma. The meaning is, My Lord, increase me in knowledge. This verse is extremely beautiful because it was revealed to Prophet Muhammad SAW himself. Despite being the most knowledgeable of all creation, the Prophet was still commanded by Allah to ask for more knowledge. What does this teach us? That learning is a lifelong journey, that humility and eagerness to learn are marks of a true believer, that even if we have achieved something, a degree, an award, a title, we must never become arrogant or stop learning. This verse is a great reminder to stay humble, curious, and continuously strive for self-improvement.
Hi everyone, I'm Siti Fatima. So here I will explaining about the factors affecting student motivation. The first part of my presentation is about what influence student motivation in classroom. In simple word, what make a student want to learn and keep going even when learning gets tough. There are many factors that come into play. First, we have teacher support. A teacher who is kind, clear, and passionate about their subject can really inspire students. When a teacher encourages effort, give feedback, and show their care, students feel more confident and motivated. Next is the classroom environment. A space that is clean, organized, and welcoming helps students feel safe and ready to participate. It is easier to focus when the classroom feels comfortable and calm. Then, we have peer relationship. Students often learn better when they feel connected to their classmates. Having a good friend in class, working in groups, or even a little healthy competition can make learning more fun and meaningful. Another key factor is student mindset and belief. If a student believes they can improve through effort, they are more likely to keep trying. But if they doubt their own ability, they might give up easily. Besides, family and cultural background also play a key role in this factor. Support from parents and alignment with cultural or religious value can give students a strong reason to succeed in school. And lastly, motivation increases when learning connects to personal goals. For example, a student who wants to become a doctor will feel more motivated to study science because it feels relevant to their future. Let's pause for a moment and think, which of these factors affect your motivation the most when you were in school? So for the next slide, I will show you the key external that will influence on motivation on students. Firstly, we have the role of the teacher. Teachers don't just deliver content, they inspire students. When a teacher provides structure, gives honest feedback, and builds respectful relationship, students feel more motivated to engage and learn. It is fact that a kind and energetic teacher can turn a boring topic into a student's favorite subject. Secondly, we have the classroom environment. A well-organized classroom that promotes fairness, participation, and emotional safety allows students to focus better. Even small things like having group activities, colorful display, or a routine can make a big difference in how motivated students feel. And last but not least, peer influence. Friends and classmates have a strong impact. When students collaborate in group tasks, help each other, or even share success stories, it builds a learning culture. But on the flip side, negative peer pressure can make students lose interest or confidence. So teachers and classmates really do help shape the learning experience. Now, let's talk about mindset, about how students view their own abilities. A student with a growth mindset believes that they can improve with effort and practice. They accept challenges, see mistakes as opportunities to learn, and don't give up easily. They might say, I'm not good at this yet, but I'll keep trying. On the other hand, a student with a fixed mindset believes that their intelligence or ability is unchangeable. They tend to avoid challenges because they fear of the failure. They might say something like, I'm just not a mad person. And then they will stop trying after one bad grade. It is fact that having a growth mindset leads to greater motivation and resilience. That's why it is so important for teachers and parents to praise effort, not just result. As Carol Dweck says, the view you adopt for yourself profoundly affect the way you lead your life. So let's help students believe in their potential and give them the support they need to keep growing. So that's all from my part. I'll pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Anis Alisha binti Muhammad Nur. Now, I will continue on how to foster motivation in learning. So, who influence student motivations? Of course, we have teachers, students, and parents. When all three work together, motivation becomes stronger and learning becomes more meaningful and effective. Let's look at a few practical strategies for teachers, parents, and students that can really make a difference. First, we have tips for teachers. One of the best things teachers can do is to make learning relevant. This means connecting lessons to real life so students understand why they are learning something. For example, if a student wants to start their own bakery in the future, they need to learn how to measure ingredients, understand costs, and maybe even market their business. So here we can see math and science suddenly become the tools, not just subjects. Or let's say someone wants to become a doctor. Then biology is not just another chapter in the textbook. It is the foundation for saving life. So, when the students understand why they are learning something, they are more likely to care about it. It is not just about memorizing facts for an exam, but it is about connecting lessons to the real world goals. Another way teachers can build motivation is by using varying teaching methods. As we know, not all students learn the same way. Some are visual learners, some are auditory learners, and others learn best when they can move around and use their hands. Instead of sticking to just lectures, teachers can include videos, discussions, hands on activities, and even games in the classroom. So, how it helps students? When lessons are varied and engaging, it increases students' focus, understanding, memory retention, and students are more likely to participate actively. It also gives them a fair chance to succeed by meeting their individual learning needs. Now, let's talk about feedback and not just any feedback but constructive feedback. For example, instead of just saying good job or that's wrong, be specific. Say things like you are improving because you tried a new method or I like how you solved that tricky step. So this type of feedback focus on the student's effort and progress, not just whether they got the answer right or wrong. When students hear positive, specific feedback, they feel encouraged to keep going even if they make mistakes along the way. Next tip for teachers is to encourage peer learning. Teachers can start by using simple activities like think, pair, share, where students think silently, then talk in pairs before sharing with the whole class. Or teachers can assign peer review tasks, where students give feedback on each other's work. This helps them reflect more deeply and learn from others' perspective. Mixing student abilities in groups is also helpful. It gives stronger students a chance to explain things which reinforce their own learning, and it gives others the chance to ask questions in a less intimidating way. And one more idea, let students take turns leading mini presentations or class discussions. It helps build leadership skills, boosts their confidence, and shows that everyone has something valuable to contribute. Sometimes the best help doesn't come from the teacher, it comes from the person sitting right next to you. Let me walk you through a typical peer learning moment that might happen during the class. Imagine there is a student trying to understand a new concept, maybe a tricky math problem. They look a bit stuck, but then they turn to their friend and say, can you explain that part to me? This question shows that the student is taking initiative. Instead of staying stuck, they are reaching out for help. There is a clear sign of motivation and a desire to understand. Now, the friend hears the question, thinks for a moment, and responds with, oh, now I get it. What we see here is clarity hitting in real time. Maybe by trying to explain it to their classmate, they actually understood it better themselves. This is called the teaching effect. Then another student who has been listening joins in and says, let's solve it together. This is where collaboration happens. Learning becomes something they work through as a team, not something they face alone. That kind of teamwork creates a positive energy that helps keep everyone motivated. All of this happens naturally without the teacher stepping in. From just a few words, we are seeing confidence, communication, problem solving, and teamwork all happening in one short exchange. Now, let's talk about parents because motivation doesn't just happen in school, it starts at home too. There are a few important things parents should do. They should praise their children's effort and persistence, not just focus on the final result. They should also create a calm and supportive study environment. A peaceful corner, even a small one, can really help a student concentrate better. It also really helps when parents ask about school in a caring tone, not a stressful or pushy one. Just a simple, "How was school today?" or "Did anything interesting happen in class?" can make a child feel like their education matters. And of course, parents should stay in touch with teachers. That way, if there is anything going on, like if their child seems unmotivated, falling behind, or even stressed, the teacher and parent can work together to support the student. On the other hand, there are things parents should avoid. One common mistake is focusing only on grades or results. Yes, grades matter, but if that is the only thing a child hears about, they start to believe that their value is based only on performance. Another one is letting children study in noisy or distracting environments. Sometimes it seems harmless, like studying in front of the TV or while scrolling on the phone, but our brains don't multitask well, especially when trying to learn. These distractions break focus and make learning harder than it needs to be. Also, yelling or blaming when grades are low doesn't magically make the child do better. In fact, it can cause anxiety or make them afraid to even try. And lastly, if a child shows signs of being stressed, unmotivated, or burnout, don't ignore. Sometimes what they really need is just someone to notice and say, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need a break?" Let's look at an example to show why parents' response matter. Imagine the parent says, "I saw how hard you worked on your essay. I'm proud of the effort." This kind of response encourages a growth mindset, which means the child learns to value efforts and improvements rather than just results. Even a simple comment like, "I noticed you have really improved since last time," can go a long way in building a student's confidence and motivations. How about if parent says, "Why didn't you get an A like your cousin?" That kind of comments makes the child feel compared and not good enough. It discourages them and can even make them anxious about trying again. And finally, some tips for students. First, start by setting personal goals. Don't just say, "I want to do well this semester." Be specific, like, "I will finish one topic today and quiz myself tonight." These small daily goals keep you on track and give you a sense of progress. Then, don't forget to reward yourself. After studying for a while, take a short break in about 5 minutes, have a snack, or listen to your favorite songs. These little rewards helps your brain associate studying with something positive, not just stress. Here is another tips for students. Take time to reflect on your purpose. Ask yourself why learning matters to you and what is your long-term goal. If you want to become a doctor, a teacher, a game designer, whatever it is, remind yourself of that goal. For example, "I want to become a doctor, so I study science seriously." It makes studying feel more meaningful and less like a chore. It is also a great idea to track your progress. You can use a journal, a checklist, or even digital habit tracker like Forest. When you see how far you have come, it gives you a boost and reminds you that your hard work is paying off. So, to sum up, at the end of the day, motivation in learning is not built by one person alone. It is a shared responsibility. Teachers guide, parents support, and students take action.
Hi, I am Nur Shakira, our last presenter, and I will conclude all the things that we've learned throughout this presentation. It seems like we've covered a lot today, and hopefully it left you feeling energized about the power of motivation in learning. Let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. First, motivation is the fuel that powers students' learning journeys. It's what keeps them going when things get tough. Next, we looked at two types of motivation. The first one is intrinsic, which comes from within, and extrinsic, which is driven by outside rewards. Both have value, and the right balance can make a huge difference.
Then, we explored major motivational theories like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which reminds us that students cannot thrive unless their basic needs are met, and self-determination theory, which shows that students are more motivated when they feel capable, connected, and in control. We also talked about the Islamic view, how seeking knowledge with sincere intention is an act of worship and a lifelong duty. Next, we examine factors that influence motivation, from the teacher's approach and classroom climate to peer support and a student's own mindset. A growth mindset, in particular, helps students bounce back from setbacks and keep moving forward. Finally, we shared practical tips for teachers, students, and parents because everyone has a role to play in creating an environment where motivation can flourish. Now, more than ever, motivation in learning is not just a nice to have, it's essential. Whether students are learning face-to-face or online, whether they are in primary school or university, motivation is what turns potential into achievement. Let's keep this in mind. Knowledge is light, and motivation is the spark. Without that spark, even the brightest ideas can fade. But with it, every learner has the chance to shine, no matter where they start or what challenges they face. So, as you walk away from this video, think, what motivates you to keep learning? And how can you help motivate someone else? If this video gave you something to think about, we'd love to hear from you. You can share your experiences in the comments because when we learn from each other, we all grow. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more educational psychology content. And if you know a fellow student, teacher, or parent who could use a little motivation boost, send this their way. Thanks for watching, and remember, every great learner starts with a spark of motivation.